directly you will see a lot of application of this part of course. So, and till now, whatever you have studied, just your only intention was to understand random process and to apply random process. So that's where we will go for application part and many things. So before going to introduction to random process, first I will recall central limit theorem, and just here I will discuss actually what is central limit theorem and how we solve problem using central limit theorem. So central limit theorem, it says that we don't know the distribution of a given random variable. Just we are having few sample. That means few data sample. That means few data point. Few value of the uh, few value of data point that is coming from some distribution, but we don't know that distribution. And one criteria in last class using central limit theorem, what we do, we can estimate parameter based on the given data, but we don't know what is the distribution in the case of a central law of large number. But when we are coming in central limit theorem, the difference is that here we can also try to approximate the distribution of the sample. So that is the difference. But both are dealing in the same fashion. Is that in the large run, that means when sample size is very large, then whatever things you have approximated, it will fall to actual one. So that is the concept. So consider Sn again. Sn be the sum of n independent and identically distributed random variables having fixed mean mu and finite variance sigma square. Then Zn, we are defining a we can call it, it is a normalized sum. Zn, it is a normalized sum, you can say that. Or how we define normalized sum? So we subtract, so we know Sn is what? It is sum of n IID, independent and identically distributed random variable. So due to that, what is the mean of Sn? So several times I have already calculated. So mean of Sn would be n times mu. Mu happens to be mean of each copy of random variable. That means each xi. So Sn is like this way: sum of n random variables having the same distribution, but we don't know that distribution. We are having just information that each one is having same mean. That mean is mu, and due to that, expectation of Sn is what? N time mu. And similarly, you can calculate variance. What would be variance? Sigma square by n. Sorry, n times sigma square. That would be n times sigma square would be variance of Sn. Sigma square by n, that would be variance of sample mean. So variance of Sn would be n times mu, sorry, expectation, and variance would be what? Call it variance of Sn. Every time you need to calculate all those things, equal to n times sigma square, due to construction of sigma square from NIAD. So yeah, so now Sn is what it is having approximate normal distribution in long run. But what we do, if you go in normal table is basically dealing with a standard normal random variable. So what we do, we standardize this Sn to Zn. How? We do mean deviation. That means we deviate the Sn by its mean. What is the mean of Sn? N time mu. So that's what that we are calling it deviation, and we divide it by a standard deviation of Sn. What is the standard deviation of Sn? It would be sigma times a square root, because variance is n times sigma square. So a standard deviation would be a square root of n times sigma. So that is coming. So that's where Zn, you can say that it is normalized sum. Then what we will observe that the in long run, that means when limit n tends to infinity, the PDF of Zn it is given by what? CDF. This you call it CDF, probability up to Z. So the CDF of Zn, it is given by, this is the CDF of a standard normal random variable. It is minus infinity to Z. So it is CDF. You can observe that this one is the CDF of Z. So in long run, you can say that normalized sum Zn is having CDF of standard normal random variable. So that is the central limit theorem. Sometimes also we can define Zn in different way. Just we that means we can define Zn in term of sample mean. So here we can observe that there is a relation between sample mean and Sn. What is the relation? We know that sample mean happens to be Sn time Sn by n. So replace Sn in term of mn, then you will see that Zn also can be expressed in term of mn. So this is the expression in term of mn. If sample mean is given, then you can proceed central limit theorem in this process. Okay, so there is no much difference. If you know Sn, then simply from the Sn you can derive mn. If you know mn, that means sample mean, then from that you can also derive sum essence. Okay, all these are related to each other. Here we can say that in central limit theorem we see that the sum on xj, that the argument can have argument of the what we call it summation, can have any distribution as long as they have finite mean and variance. That means in this sum, if you observe that then this sum involve xi's, and then this xi's may have any distribution. It may have uniform distribution, it may have binomial distribution, Bernoulli distribution, whatever distribution, or any possible distribution. But if you try to observe distribution of Sn, here each component of sum may have any distribution. They are free to take any distribution, but when you sum it up to n, and n happens to be greater than or equal to 32, that one is threshold value of central limit theorem. That means there is a theory behind this. I won't cover it here. So you will see that Sn will approximate normal distribution. That is the Sn will approximate normal distribution, and Zn will approximate what distribution? It will approximate a standard normal distribution. That is the theory. Okay, the comparison of the exact CDF and the Gaussian approximation of for some of Bernoulli or uniform or exponential random variable, we can observe. So few things we have taken here: Bernoulli random variable, we have taken here uniform random variable. That means xi happens to be Bernoulli random variable, or xi happens to be uniform random variable, or xi happens to be exponential random variable. Then if you are taking this kind of xi, then we are summing it up, then what would be Sn? Then we will see the nature of Sn. So it is a graph against CDF. CDF we are because here CDF is easy to calculate, and by differentiating we can get a corresponding PDF as well. So what you can observe that this CDF zigzag piecewise continuous CDF you observe, it is the situation for which function? It is situation for discrete, that you can say that Bernoulli random variable, and what you in long run, that means when sample size is greater than 32, and you can observe that we can this Bernoulli random variable taking sum, it can approximate the CDF of this CDF is what? This sigmoid kind of nature, it is CDF of what? A standard normal random variable. This one is the CDF of a standard normal random variable. You might have already seen that. This is the plot of CDF of sigmoid. CDF of a standard normal random variable is having what kind of structure? It is having sigmoid structure. This structure we are calling it sigmoid structure. It is very famous kind of function, playing very important role in machine learning as well. So here you can observe that here number of sample or sample size has been increased here. It was here how much? It was up to 10, something like that, 5, then 10, you can say that something like. But here sample size is going up to 32. Then that means this discrete normal distribution as a sum has been approximated by normal distribution very closely. So close approximation you can observe that. So as per increase in sample size, you can observe that you are just more leading more faster towards normal or standard normal distribution. That is the idea of central limit theorem. So we'll do one problem. After that, we will go to introduction to random process. So here, what question is that? Suppose that orders at restaurant are IID. So many customers are visiting a restaurant, and definitely people will order in different fashion. It is not like that everyone is having same mind. Okay, so but what you can easily observe that people are coming as according to their family, or some coming with respect with their friends, and like that way. So each group happens to be, just consider group, each group happens to be independent to others, because otherwise you know that all are coming from different area. So definitely independent, just for simplicity we can introduce independent nature. And suppose each one are having similar kind of distribution. So that means independent and identity. That's why we are saying that the customers, what orders they are giving at a restaurant, they are actually having independent and identically distributed nature. Okay, random variable. And suppose mean is $8 mean of the order. That one is mean order that they are giving per head. In average, what would be that per head in average, of or per uh, av- per group in average, you can say that $8 payment is happening per order. $8 payment is happening. And also we consider that standard deviation is it is also given here, it is $2. Okay, then we have to estimate the probability that the first 100 customer spend a total of more than 850 $40. And first, this one is the first question. Remember that we haven't given distribution of the customers, we don't know the distribution, just we are having mean and standard deviation. That means variance, we are having variance and mean, and we don't know what is the distribution. But the question is that we have to estimate the probability that we have to estimate the probability. If we know the distribution, easily we can calculate probability, but we don't know the distribution. So how we can calculate? So we can calculate probability here with the help of central limit theorem. How we will see that? So first question is that estimate the probability that first 100 customer spend a total of more than $840. Second question is that what we have to do, we have to estimate that the probability that first 100 customers spend a total of amount between $780 to $820. This one is the second question. And third question is that after how many orders can we be 90% sure that the total spent by the customer is more than $100,000. So three questions here. Here probability is coming. Second question also probability, we have to calculate the probability. In third question, what is coming? Number sample size, n is coming. So three things we have to calculate. So just put it here. This third question is starting from here. So we have to solve all these with the help of central limit theorem. That simple statement is how you will see that how much powerful that one is. So consider xk be the expenditure of the kth customer. Okay, and then the total spent by the first 100 customer is what s100. That means x1 plus x1 is for first customer, x2 is for second customer, and likewise x100 is the expenditure of 100th customer. Then we have to find the expectation of s100. What is the expectation of s100? We know that each xis are having same mean and standard deviation or variance. So that's way expectation of s100, it would be just n times expectation of xi. What is the expectation of xi? It is 8 and sample size is what 100. So n times 8, it would be 800. And 800, that means that would be expectation of x s100. Similarly, we can calculate the variance of s100. What would be n time variance of xi? Here it is given sigma standard, it is a sigma is given here, it is a standard deviation of xi. So sigma square would be variance. That means variance of xi would be 4. We have to multiply 4 with sample size. That means 400 is the variance of s100. Now we are having information about s100. Now we are going to solve first problem. That what we do, Gaussian PDF approximation of, that means we will do Gaussian PDF approximation of s100. Okay, and s129. So these two things we will do, then I will go for further. Okay, so this I'm just giving one picture of s100. So this is you can observe that this is the picture of s100. But if you are taking sample size, it has been increased s129. This is the picture of S 129. Okay, and you can easily observe that both are having approximately similar nature to what Gaussian used to having. So that's way, irrespective of xi, S100 is very near to Gaussian. So that's way we don't need to know the distribution of xi. Just apply central limit theorem. From there we can discuss a lot about S100 or Sn or sample mean. Okay. So now what we do, we have to normalize S100. How? That deviate S100 by corresponding mean. Mean happens to be 800 and have to divide by corresponding standard deviation. That one is 20. A square root of 400 is what? 20. That's it. We can see that we have first question. It is first question is saying that expenditure is what is the probability that expenditure is greater than that sum of expenditure, that S100 sum of expenditure is greater than $840. So just for a calculation perspective, the dollar unit I have taken it off. So just I am going to calculate this probability. How we can calculate this probability? It is very simple. You can easily observe that this is what kind of probability? It is a probability of tail. But we don't know the distribution of S100. We just know the distribution of normalized random variable. So we will apply that benefit. So what we do summation again deviation of S100 by corresponding mean, and we divide by corresponding standard deviation. So we do both sides. So in that process, this one is again it is a right hand side S100 is a random variable. So if after doing some kind of linear transformation, we further observe that it remains a random variable, but in right hand side of this greater less than this one is greater than equal to this order sign greater than this quantity. So this quantity would be fixed, and you can easily see that what is the name of this one? It is a Zn. So you are going to calculate Zn is what? That means it is a normal random variable. It is Z100. Matlab sample size is 100. So Z100 is greater than calculate this. So 840 minus 800. That means it would be 40, and you have to divide it by 20. 40 by 20 is what? 2. So that means it is talking about probability of tail. So in the plot of normal distribution, you can observe like this way. If you observe, this is the normal distribution. So you are going to calculate this area. Suppose 2 is it here. So you are going to calculate this area. If you see in detail about characterization of normal random variable, then another name of this one also you can say that name of this one is qt. Simply you can say that. Otherwise in terms of qt, if you want to express it as CDF, then you can express it this one is the probability of tail. So you can say that it is 1 minus probability up to Z100 is taking value 2. So that means 1 minus Z100 is less than equal to 2. So that also you can write that. There is no issue. Why? And we know that what does it talk about? It is talking about CDF of standard normal random variable. And what is the notation of CDF of standard normal random variable? That we denote it by phi. So 1 minus phi of 2. And pi of 2 value would be given in the normal table. So from the norm, if you are willing to find this probability from normal table, it would be 1 minus pi of 2, and if you try to find it by this area wise, it is q2. You can say that it is q2. So the approximate probability is what? 2.28. This one is giving answer of first question. Second question is that your sum of expenditure, it will fall between 780 to 820. That means S100 is between 780 to 820. Again apply the same linear transformation. That means subtract S100 by corresponding mean and divide by a corresponding standard deviation. In that process, it remain a new random variable that we are calling it normalized sum, or simply you can say that it is Z100. Okay, and left limit and right limit, it has been changed to this quantity has been 780 minus 800. Okay, uh, divide by 20. Oh sorry, it would be 720. It is not 780 minus 800. What would be this one? 780 minus 800, that means minus 20. Minus 20 divided by 20 is minus 1. And here in right hand side we observe that 820 minus 800 divided by 20, that means 20 by 20, that means 1. So it says that normalized random sum Z100 is taking, what is the probability that normalized Z100 is taking value between -1 to 1. So how we can calculate? You can calculate this using CDF that is in notation of 5. So you can calculate through CDF. So with respect to CDF, it would be this one. Otherwise, geometrically, if you want to calculate, the geometrically calculation is like this way. So I would like to take the same graph, but here I have already plotted, so I don't want to make it further uh, rough there. So I am taking a separate fresh graph of Z100. So it is like this way. So geometrically, if you want to see that, what does it say? It is saying that you want to calculate probability that Z100 is between -1 to 1. So this one is for normalized random variable. What is the mean? Mean happens to be 0, and a standard deviation, one standard deviation towards right, and one standard deviation towards left. So this, so that means you want to Z100 must lies between -1 to 1. In that process, that means you have to calculate this area. So this area is the desired area of the probability. Desired probability. This area, if you calculate, you are able to calculate this area. This area is giving desired probability. That is the question solution of question 2. Okay. Okay. So if you are having any question, you can ask. So it is really interesting. In third question, what we observe, we have to find sample size. That means here probability would be given, and we have to find sample size. So how we can find sample size? So again apply the same probability. Here probability is already given, that what is the probability that SN is greater than 1000, and that probability is given. Probability is 0.90. Here N is unknown. So what we do, that we need to express Sn in terms of normalized random variable. So we do normalization. That means we subtract Sn, deviate Sn by corresponding mean of the Sn, and we have need to divide by corresponding standard deviation. So after doing that, Sn what has been transformed to Zn, and the right hand side bound, this bound has been transformed to this. It is just a function of n. So it simply says that from the probability table, you will see that this quantity is nothing but this quantity is equal to negative time 1.2815. So just try to solve this equation. It is actually it is involving a square root. What does it mean? It is a quality equation. A square root means just it is a quality equation. By doing squaring both sides, and after solving, you will come to see that value of n would be either this a square root of this one, this, or this. So this is the desired value of sample size. So sample size can't be in fraction. So you need to go for decimal approximation. So you have to round up 6. So what is the round up value of this n? Round up value of this n would be 1 to 9. So that's where the graph of 1 to 9, I had taken it in the previous slide. Okay. Anyone is having any question, or is it fine to everyone? So it is finished of module 3. So we are going to module 4. That one is the last module. Any question? Further, anyone is having any doubt, you can put your doubt there in Google Classroom. If you feel, if you're having any kind of doubt, any kind of question, just feel free and put your doubt there in Google Classroom. Okay. Any question? Anyone is having? No question. So I assume that things are clear to everyone. So I'm going to discuss further module 2. Sorry, last module. This one is talking about introduction to random process. So it is really interesting from different perspectives that we will see it here. So in certain random experiment, the outcome, what we will observe, that it is a function of time or a space. So simply, if you take population modeling, population, if population evolution, if you observe, or if you observe evolution of pandemic, any pandemic disease, any kind of pandemic disease. So all these are what happens to be function of time. So they involve with respect to time. So in current situation, you might have already seen the nature of corona. So it is totally evolutionary in nature. So you can say that it is a random process. It's talking about a random process. No one can say that what is the deterministic nature of COVID. Uh, it is completely random in nature. So that's way. If you try to explain things in a very flexible way, you need to know what is the random process. So, further example I have taken it is like this way. For example, in a speech recognition or in a speech processing, decisions are made on the basis of voltage waveform corresponding to a speech utterance. What speech people are uttering, based on that decision are made. Okay. Also, if you go in image processing system, the intensity or color of the image varies over a rectangular region. So you might have already seen that in many book, what image always happens to be black and white image always we take as a matrix. Uh, it is some matrix, or and we divide it further, and each entry behave like what we can call it, those are intensity, or we can say that those are scales or pixels. Simply we can say pixel size. So each entry are playing role of pixel, and that entry pixel we measure it through some intensity or some color or something like that, some kind of terms we need to introduce. And also we can go for color images. So color images happens to be tensor. So apart from matrix, in matrix, apart from matrix, we need to take a collection of matrices, like that thing is coming, one matrix for one color, another matrix for another color, like this way, if you are going for a color image. But for black and white, it is just a matrix. Okay. So these things, so it happens, it is a rectangular kind of region. So all these if you're taking a series of color, if you're taking colors image, it is series of several matrices. So you are getting collection of matrices. So what does it, again it will evolve with respect to time. Color is changing with respect to time. So evolve. So you are getting a random process further. So further, in a peer-to-peer network, the number of peers in a system varies with time. In some situation, two or more function of time may be of interest. Okay. Also, like one example, you can observe that temperature in a certain city. You can consider your home city and the demand placed on local electricity power utility. Uh, Demand, matlab how much demand people are putting, that the city is putting in order to fulfill the requirement to deal with temperature. So temperature, it is not in your hand, it is a natural thing, so it depends upon nature. But electricity, it is your hand, it is a actually man-made thing. So you can vary the utility of electricity. So in that process, you can approximate the utility of what temperature you can't approximate. You can match up from the electricity to that amount, how much temperature is varying. So or simply how much temperature is evolving with respect to time, how much it is involving. So that pattern also you can mimic, you can study with the help of evolution of electricity. That one is in your hand. Okay. So further we will see that the random time function in above example, so all those temperature and power voltage, those things can be viewed as a numerical quantity that evolve randomly in time or a space. So random process, you can say that it is a sequence, or it is an index family of random variable. And here for each t we are getting a random variable. So you can say that index family t belongs to capital T, or simply you can say that in general index set. And simplest index random process, you can say that sequence of random variable. You can like take like, if T is taking time sequentially, then you can say that this sequence of random variable, this one is a very simple case. The sequence of random variable happens to be a, sorry, not x, it will belongs to set of natural number sequence. When we are calling it sequence, and must that index must come from natural number. Okay. So this is the situation. So it is just random process is what generalization of sequence of random variables, and each each time represent a separate random variable. Okay. So for example, you can say that temperature at two different time, different time instant will represent two random variable. But in order to deal temperature of a particular city, then you want keep on taking different kind of random variable. You will take a sequence of random variable. You will store the data sequentially. So that's why better thing to explain temperature of a city is that you need to introduce a random process where which in the temperature which involve with respect to time. The specification of joint behavior. Further, what we will do, we will also study joint behavior of temperature at different time. It is very much essential. So those are characterization of random process. So what the specification of joint variable is done by specifying joint distribution function as well as mean and covariance function. So these things will come. So based on nature, different covariance at different random process, we will define different covariance function. So it will be very much related with kernel function. That kernel technique I will introduce later. Anyone is having any question till now? Till now, I haven't start random process. Just I am giving introduction where you observe random process. So I am going to define random process. What does it talk about? So simply in layman way, you can say that it is a sequence of random variable. But here sequence, what your index is not a natural number. Your index is anytime. Anytime. Okay, anytime t kind of. So consider a random experiment specified by outcome omega from some sample of space omega. Okay, by the event defining omega and by the probability on this event. So we define. Uh, so suppose to every outcome omega we assign a function of time according to some rule. That means for every omega we define a function of time t. Okay, function of time. Each outcome it is mapped like this way for each outcome. We are getting function of time t. So here t is varying. So that means you are getting a function of t for each omega, each outcome omega. So what is happening here? You observe that it random process. It happens to be function of two argument. One argument is what that outcome from the experiment. Outcome from the experiment. Another outcome the evolution. So evolution that t what we measure. So always the random process we see in the random variable. You might have already seen that it is having single argument. That one is the outcome of a random experiment, single argument. But when you are coming to define random process, then you are introducing one more argument. That argument we are calling it time, or you can say that indexing argument. Also you can say that indexing argument. Okay, so for each outcome omega, you can say that it is representation of the corresponding time function. The function t from, that means this function for each omega. So each omega, that means if that once you are taking one omega, it becomes a fixed outcome. With respect to that you are varying time, so you are getting a function of time. This function of time for each fixed omega we are calling it realization or sample path or sample function of the random process. So few example you can observe that. So here if you are taking omega 1, and with respect to omega 1, temperature may vary like this way. These are the variation of temperature with respect to time. Okay. With respect to omega 2, temperature is varying like this way. With respect to omega 3, temperature is varying like this way. Suppose x t omega, it represents temperature, random process. Temperature as a random process. So that is the example. So here I will take few example. One example is that till now in high school you had already seen that decimal expansion of any real number. So like if someone is saying that what is the decimal expansion of 9 by 10, decimal expansion of 9 by 10 is just 0.9. That means we write the number in term of what with the help of decimal and 10 digit. We don't need division or any multiplication kind of things. Okay, we need this one is expansion. Suppose someone is saying that pi. What is the decimal expansion of pi? So it is a rational number. So what is in the decimal expansion? We can see the clear difference between rational and irrational number. What is the difference in rational number? The decimal expansion says the rational number happens to be a number where decimal expansion are either repeating or terminating. Like here 9 by 10 is a rational number, and we observe that decimal expansion is 0.9. It is terminating in nature. But if you take another rational number 3 by 9, or you can take like this way 1 by 3, not 3 by 9. Take 1 by 3. So what would be? It would be repeating in nature. So 1 by 3. That means what is the decimal expansion of this one? It would be 0.3, 0.3333. It will go on. 3 will go on. So repeating. So you can observe it is a repeating kind. Decimal expansion is repeating kind with the cycle 1. With cycle 1, here 3 repeats itself. Okay, that's why 1 by 3 is a rational number from decimal expansion perspective. But if you take pi, pi is a irrational number. So irrational number in decimal expansion happens to be non-terminating or non-cycling. So what is the value of pi? It would be 3.14, okay, 7, like that kind of things. So it is purely random in nature. Anything may come. You can't observe any pattern here. So it depends upon calculation how you are trying to approximate value of pi. So based on that you will see that it will keep on changing. So pi is taking value very strange in fashion that we can't observe pattern. It is purely random in nature. Similarly, if you take e, what is the value of e? Okay, something around 2.74 something 34 something like that. So that e is also what it is irrational and having a decimal expansion which is what non-terminating and non-cycling. So that okay, that kind of situation you can observe in decimal expansion. That one is the story of decimal expansion, but here I am talking about a story of binary expansion. But binary of expansion, we are having only two digit. One digit is 0 because our base would be 2. So another that means Z2. We are talking about Z2. So that means we either that digit would be 0 or 1. So in binary expansion we are having only two, 0 or 1, or machine language that we are calling it. So let W be a number selected at random from the interval 0 1, and let B1 B2 dot, it will go on like this way. The binary expansion of the number omega that we have taken from the interval 0 1. So what is the in the binary expansion notation, omega we can write it like this way. This in the this in term of this product of bi's, infinite product of bi's, where bi happens to be either 0 or 1 because it is a binary expansion. Okay, so what we have to do, we can define a discrete random process where time happens to be integral value, positive integral value, that time 1 2 3 4 kind like this way. So xn of omega, it is talking about case of corresponding bn. Okay, so this one is the corresponding bn. So this resulting process, it is a sequence of binary numbers with xn of omega equal to nth number in the binary expansion of uh, omega. Okay, so now another example. So it is already 45 minutes. Other things I will discuss in next class just after covering this one. Another very simple kind of random process is that what you do, take a cosine signal and take a cosine signal, and where your amplitude is random in nature. Amplitude, so omega, so xt of omega you are defining. So you know that if you are taking any kind of wave or signal, so what you observe that it is having a amplitude and frequency. So frequency term, it will be here. Okay. So this one is the amplitude. So here consider we are random one random amplitude. It is not a deterministic or fixed amplitude. So if you are taking a random amplitude due to some random experiment, then we will observe a what a random process. So this one is a random process. So for each omega, each different omega, we can observe various realization of this random process. So one realization, if you are taking omega equal to 0.6, then with respect to that we are getting this dotted line. If you are taking minus 0.2, then you will get this kind of realization. If you're taking 0.91, then you will get this kind of realization. So various function of time you will observe that means various signal you will observe that. Here amplitude is random in nature. So that is that. So you can ask one question: what is the source of randomness in random process? So that question, just think over it. I will answer in next class. It is already 45 minutes, so other things I will cover in next class. Regarding attendance, just mark your attendance in the comment box, or you can put there in Google Classroom as well. Okay. If any